This is the Ninja Legion, and welcome to Bagged and Boarded. I'm Spider, and we're going to talk about some new comic book series today. First off, I want to start with ODY-C, ODY-C. See the picture right over. I already messed up. Right over here. That's the cover for issue number 1. It's written by Matt Fraction, who's currently also writing Hawkeye for Marvel. That's been met with a lot of positive review. It's been very well critiqued. People have really been enjoying that series. So this is something more on his own terms. Art by Christian Ward. Wasn't sure what to expect when I first picked it up. Issue 2 just came out last week. So I'm kind of getting into an issue behind. So I read issue 1. It's kind of neat. It's their own telling of the traditional Odyssey story, but with everything kind of gender swapped. So all the main characters are female instead of being male characters, and it takes place in outer space. So it's like a sci-fi twist on it. It starts off the end of a war that's been happening between two different groups. It focuses on 3 sisters at the beginning. It's NA, Gammon, kind of weird, and then Odysseia. And it's them kind of like going, all right, cool, the war's done, we're at peace, we can finally go back to our families and, you know, enjoy this after we fought for so long to have peace. And they're like, all right, they go to get in their ships and go home, and the gods are like, all right, well, now that the war's over, what are we gonna, we need entertainment. Silly humans are always fighting and doing something to keep us entertained, and right now this isn't going to work. So Poseidon decides, I'm just going to go ahead and mess with them and, ruin their plans of going home. So specifically, Odyssea's ship, the Odyssey, which is what the series is named after, is hit with some kind of god breath wind thing that sends the ship off course and puts them into Siccone space, which are a group of warriors that were hired by their enemy during the war to fight them. And so the first thing she decides to do, she's like, well, we're just going to kill them because they're bloodthirsty savages and there's nothing else that we could do about this. So attacks their ships, and even the way their ships work is weird. The captain, the main character, is in like this weird womb thing. And then all of the other people who help control the ship are all in these little bubbles as well. And they all kind of have to be in sync with each other to get it to work. And like one of them was dissenting, which apparently messed everything up. Because, yeah, it's just one of those weird things that apparently if one person disagrees with what everybody else is doing, it just ruins everything. Which seems like a really poor method for space travel. But it'd be interesting to see kind of where it goes with that. So they blow up these ships, no problem, take it on. They're like, victory is ours. And then it's Odysseia thinking about her home on Ithaca and her son that was born right before the war started, who's now an adult because it's been so long that she's been gone fighting, and she just wants to go home and see her kid. It's interesting to see kind of like this twist on it, the whole space travel version and gender swap thing for that classic story of the Odyssey. It's very different. The art style's a little weird for me. I'm not the biggest fan of it. Not saying that it's a bad art style, but it's not kind of what I typically look for when I look at comic books. But it's not bad. The story seems interesting. I'm definitely curious to see where they take it from here. How close they're going to stay to the traditional Odyssey story, with the sub stories and things that happen throughout that, or because they want to make it their own. Obviously, it is an Image comic, which means it's done by full creative control through the owners and the artists and writers, which is really cool. So they'll be able to do what they want to do with it, as opposed to big companies like DC or Marvel where they're like, oh no, you have to do it this way with this. They can tell their own story and make their own characters, which is kind of why I drift towards the independent stuff, like Image. So it's definitely a different take. I look forward to reading the second issue and seeing where they go. They said that it's going to address the fall of the Titans, classic Greek mythology. But it's definitely something that I would check out. Matt Fraction is a very good writer. And that's always a big key thing when you're reading comic books, is finding very strong writers, people who can tell a story really well. People will keep you interested whether it's through the dialogue or just the general storytelling. And if you liked Hawkeye, it's definitely worth giving it a shot if you like Matt Fraction's writing style. So moving on, we have another Image comic. It's called Tooth and Claw, or now the Autumn Lands Tooth and Claw. Apparently there was another series already called Tooth and Claw, so they had to go back and kind of change it a little bit. And this is another high fantasy type story. It's written by Kurt Busiek, and the artwork's by Benjamin Dewey. Kurt Busiek is an Eisner Award-winning writer, best known for doing his own series called Astro City. He also did the Marvel short story just Marvels, or miniseries Marvels, and then he did a 4-year run on the Avengers. So this is a very well-regarded, talented writer as well. Like I said, it's a high fantasy type story. All of the characters are anthropomorphic, so they're animals in humanoid form. As you can see on the cover, there's a warthog sorceress or wizard. It starts off with a dog character who I believe is going to be the main focus of the series. They show him a little bit in the beginning. There's an interaction with him and his father where they're using magic as a currency to trade with who they call the Lesser Ones, which are a race of like buffalo people who live on the ground, I suppose. They mentioned they live in cloud cities. So they're like magically floating cities in the air. They're trading them magic to acquire like food and things like that. A small conflict happens where they had asked for 3 times as much production, and they're like, this isn't the amount we agreed upon. They're like, no, this is exactly the amount we agreed upon. This is just enough magic that you can do what you need to do. And they're like, but you made us do 3 times as much work. We should get paid more. And the dad, who's a wizard, strikes the head guy with a bolt of lightning and it's like, I'm not dealing with this guy anymore. You need to find someone else to deal with us, or you're going to go without magic. And basically just go like, and tells his son, we need to assert our power over these people. Otherwise they'll try to uprise and overthrow us. So there's a clear like kind of class divide that they set up in the beginning of this, where the people who have access to magic and who have wizards are dominant over the people who don't. It goes from there. The son kind of goes off on his own and's watching like all these ships coming in, and apparently there is a great like meeting of all these wizards to discuss like issues of importance to all the different flying cities. So the big issue that they bring up is that magic has been failing them. They use it as this currency. They use it to maintain their power, but their power is starting to weaken. They're all concerned that they might not be able to afford to use the magic to pay for food anymore, keep their enemies at bay, or just maintain their general form of life. They live in cities that are magically floating in the sky, and if you run out of magic, your cities just plummet into the earth, and that's not good. It moves on where the Warthog Sorcerer, who you see on the cover, she is proposing an idea. She's like, all right, well, when we first got magic into our world, there was this great champion who showed us the way, unlocked magic to us. What we should do is we should try to use our magic to reach back in time and talk to that champion and find out how they unlocked that magic, and maybe we can get our magic back that way. At which point his name is Talon, the eagle, who's I guess like the highest ranked wizard, goes, no, this is blasphemy. The gods don't want us to do this sort of thing. It's been all of these years and we've never done it before. Why would they want us to do it now? And they're like, well, the gods have been silent for hundreds of years. Obviously they don't care what's going on, and this is what we need to do to ensure our survival. So Talon's very insistent, like, this is not going to happen. You're blaspheming. You need to leave. We're done. And as the sorceress leaves, other wizards kind of slowly start to meet with her to find out what's going on. And they decide that they're actually going to go through with this. And it's Vandal's Tentacular Drift is what the actual spell they need to do is called. And it requires 16 wizards to work together to make this spell work so they can kind of reach through time and pull this great champion to their time to talk to them. So while they're trying to make everything work, the spell is too powerful for the wizards that are currently doing it, and there's this backlash into them. Some people are, they see these like eyes explode, and there's like a bear guy like puking his guts out and stuff. So it's pretty graphic. It's definitely made for a mature audience with that. And of course, the spell backlash negates the magic that's keeping their city afloat, and you see the city start to plummet out of the sky. At the end, everyone's like, "Oh my god, all these people are dying! This is the end for us. We're doomed. The spell didn't work. And they're picking through the wreckage, trying to find their loved ones, find any survivors they can. And you even see like the dog character with another one where they're like, we're sorry. You see his father like impaled on something, so his dad didn't survive. And at the very end, they reveal that the sorceress was able to get what they call the unremitting pearl, which is like kind of like an egg, like a little magical sphere that supposedly has this great hero inside of it. So it seems that even with through the great sacrifice that they made, they were able to successfully pull the hero through, or seemingly. The problem is now they are on the ground with who they refer to as the lesser ones, who the dog wizard recently, pissed off. So you see all these buffalo people marching towards them at the end, which sort of sets up potential conflict for later on. The art style is really cool. I actually really enjoy it. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel with it being very anthropomorphic. It kind of gives that, that furry vibe to it, and that is kind of deterrent for a lot of people. But they do it. It's handled in a very good way. Everything looks smooth with it, and they do represent a lot of different species of animals. You see chameleons, bears, dogs, eagles, owls, mice, cats. So a lot of like common species and stuff. I'm interested to see a little bit more how their system of magic works, how they handle casting things, and what the abilities of certain people are. They didn't go too far into detail with that. And it'll be interesting to see where the conflict goes between the lesser ones and the people who've been living in the Sky City. And also what happens with the other cities, because this is just one city that they talk about, and there are a bunch of other cities that they mention in the beginning as well. So I definitely look forward to checking out issue 2 of this, which is on shelves right now. I just read the first issue for now just to get a little bit of a taste for it. Issue 3, I believe, is coming out in a couple of weeks. So if it's something that you'd be interested in checking out, hit up your local comic book store and look and see if you can find Tooth and Claw number 1. Second printings have gone out, so you should be able to find it without too much difficulty. Finally, the last issue that I want to talk about today, the biggest release for this past week is Star Wars number 1 through Marvel Comics. Anybody who knows the Star Wars franchise and at least their comic book history knows that they've been with Dark Horse for a long time now. And with Disney's recent acquisition of both Marvel and Star Wars franchise, it only makes sense that Marvel was going to be getting the Star Wars comics back. The biggest question that I had when I first heard this was coming out was seeing all the classic characters on the covers that they've shown is, when is this story going to take place? Is it going to be a retelling of the original trilogy? Is it going to happen between movies, afterwards, and things like that? Because if it's kind of a retelling of the original trilogy, most people have seen them. Most people have seen A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, all, because they're classic movies at this point. But I was very happy to see that they're not doing the retelling. Jason Aaron is writing it, and John Cassidy is the artist for it. And this is the first of many Star Wars series that they plan on doing. Actually, the back of this issue has previews for Darth Vader number 1 and Princess Leia number 1, which will both be coming out in the next couple of weeks. And the biggest thing to note with this, with it being such a huge release, it's actually sold out at most comic book retailers. So you're going to have to wait. Possibly this week, some of them might be getting in additional shipments of it, but the main store that I go to, Collector's Corner, they were actually sold out the day that it came out. And there's a lot of people that are still going around trying to find this, because both comic book fans and Star Wars fans are like, yeah, we got to read the new Marvel Star Wars. So timeline for the book, getting into the actual details of it, it is set after A New Hope, so after the first Death Star is destroyed. And it's the main crew, so Han Solo, Luke, Leia, Chewie, R2, and C-3PO are going to a city to help to rescue some captives from the Empire. They go there as they claim to be representatives of Jabba the Hutt, acquiring new slaves for him. They even have Forlom there, who's one of the bounty hunters from the original trilogy. If you're familiar with those, you got kind of like the big bug eyes on top, and he identifies Han Solo immediately, and he's like, I can explain all that, but at least it establishes his connection to Jabba the Hutt. And they kind of show them walking in, with the stormtrooper escort and stuff. Everyone else is in disguise. They're, so that, because obviously the Empire is going to recognize Luke at this point and everybody else. So they're going through in this mission and everything. They're like, all right, we're going to wait here. And then, of course, they reveal their rebel plot and start fighting stormtroopers and things like that. And Luke wanders down and finds where all the people are held captive. It's a very short story as a setup thing, and a good chunk of the back of the book is taken up by previews for the next stuff. The art style is really good. It fits Star Wars really well. They get the likenesses down for the characters, awesome, because with it being based off of a live action movie, it's important to capture the likeness of the actors who portrayed those characters originally, and they do. I definitely feel they do a good job of that. You get a small look at Vader. He shows up to be a negotiator for the release of the slaves. Chewie attempts to snipe him with with his laser crossbow thing that he has, and of course, it doesn't work. And then at the very end, they show they're like everyone's trying to escape, and they're like, "Where did Luke go?" And you see Luke and Vader confronting each other in the hallway, and it just ends there. So there's gonna the next issue. There's gonna be a cool lightsaber fight. So yeah, it's pretty good so far. It's a nice little setup type thing for the moment. It's going to be something that Star Wars fans are going to want to have as long as the storytelling continues to go well. There shouldn't be an issue there. And the big thing with this is that it's actually establishing the new canon. With Disney's acquisition of the Star Wars franchise, they erased all of the extended universe that they had before. So the only things that counted as canon for Star Wars were the original trilogy, the prequels, Clone Wars, and now the Rebels series that's on TV, and then the future movies that are going to be coming out. So this actually establishes the story that happens between the movies and potentially what happens after them. The preview for the Vader book actually shows Vader going and meeting with Jabba the Hutt, which is an interaction that we hadn't seen previously, so that'll be kind of cool to see how the two of those characters interact. And the Leia issue, it was just a little bit, and it happens after the award ceremony that happens at the end of A New Hope as well, the little medal thing. So I'd be curious to see where they go from here, if they're also going to do stories that fill in the blanks between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and then see where they go to fill in the space between Return of the Jedi and then The Force Awakens, which is coming out. Obviously, they're going to put out a bunch of series to tie in with this. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Boba Fett standalone series sometime soon. They've expressed interest in doing a standalone Boba Fett movie, so I wouldn't be surprised if they want to do something to help tie into that also. There's a few other issues that have come out on shelves soon that I'll be coming back to do other reviews for. There was a new Mortal Kombat series that came out this week that I picked up and read, and I'll be talking about in another episode. There's also a new Dungeons & Dragons Baldur's Gate series that I picked up that I haven't had a chance to read yet, but I'll be coming back and doing a review on that. So those are two ones to look forward to in the future. I'll be keeping up with these series and giving you some feedback as I get a little bit further into them and dig a little bit more into the meat of the series. But hopefully you enjoyed hearing about these new books. They're all very early on, so they're great series to jump into if you're looking for some new titles to read. But again, it's Odyssey, written by Matt Fraction, art by Christian Ward. Tooth and Claw, written by Kurt Busiek, and art by Benjamin Dewey. And finally, Star Wars by Jason Aaron and art by John Cassidy. So go to your local comic book store, check those out, keep reading. Thanks for listening. I'm Spider. This is the Ninja Legion, and we'll see you next time.